Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. It's been a little while since I've uploaded a new video, but I figured why not? Let's go crazy. So today, clearly, I have The Child by Sideshow Collectibles. Some people might refer to Baby Yoda or Grogu, but I prefer The Child myself. I was actually fortunate enough to get this really early on, right after Sideshow started shipping them. I got mine within a few days of the first few deliveries. I had initially pre-ordered it almost exactly when it went up for pre-sale. I think I saw the pre-sale the next morning, so I was right in that first group. I I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like a huge child fanatic. I know everybody's like, "Oh my God, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda." I like him. Um, I think he's an endearing character, and my thing was the price was right. I was able to get in it when it was still at the $350 price point, which is, yeah, right about where I would be willing to spend. Anything more than that, and I probably wouldn't have gotten in on it. But I enjoy having the life size figures, and it just seemed like a cool purchase. So, unfortunately, I don't really have much to compare him to, but from what I know of the Hot Toys version, he has a lot more articulation. His mouth is articulated, the joints are articulated, he has swap out ears, and I'm going to be honest, from what I have seen of the Sideshow versus the Hot Toys, I much prefer the Sideshow version. Now, kind of looking around the room, you can see I have more in the way of statues than I do of posable figures. I'm not going to sit around posing the child. I'm not going to play with him. That would be weird. So I like the idea of something that is posed, that is always going to look good. It's always going to look how the artist intended it. So I am perfectly fine with it being in this position. I know a lot of people have gone back and they have modified their childs or children, whatever. Um, Most notably that I've seen, you have Adam Savage on his Tested channel. If anybody follows Cosplay Chris, he also did a mod of the child figure. I know of at least one user on the RPF who posted a thread on how he modified his, and they all look great. They look very cool. But again, I I like adhering to the original artist's intention. So I'm fine with the lack of articulation. I like the pose. It's not spectacular. I don't feel like Sideshow Collectibles life-size figures are really known for their dynamic poses. You know, you look at my life-size Boba Fett, not exactly the most dynamic pose. The life-size Yoda, same thing. You look at any of the other life-size, not exciting poses. But it feels like it kind of fits into the natural environment. And actually, there was a scene early on in season 2 of The Mandalorian, which, as of filming this, has one episode left, where the child was actually sitting on or standing on the ramp of the Razor Crest, holding the knob. And I said, "Oh, that really reminds me of the Sideshow pose." So I don't know if maybe it came from early production footage of Mandalorian season 2 of how they kind of settled on this pose, but I like it. Another kind of controversial component of this has been the painting of the cheeks and the face. And like I said, I got mine early on, but I wasn't one of the first people to get it. I got it within like a week of them starting to ship. And I was hearing all these people say, "Oh my goodness, it's so pink. It looks so strange." So, you know, I'm kind of thinking the worst. I'm going, "Oh God, this is going to be terrible when it comes in." And I got it. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's not overwhelmingly pink. I think it gives it a very real sense to it. You know, maybe it's just the idea of that uncanny valley, right? Where you see something that's supposed to be alive, but you can tell when it's not quite alive. And to see, if we use a real life example, if you see somebody whose face is devoid of any coloration, you know something is amiss. And I feel like having this hint of pink on his face, it suggests a little bit more life to the figure than if it were just like a flat green. And I think there's also kind of a trick to cameras where it really sort of changes the tone of what you're seeing. Because when I look at it in person as I'm filming this, it really doesn't look that pink. Then when you kind of look at through the camera lens, it makes it look a lot more pink. But either way, up front, I'm going to say I'm fine with the way that he's been painted. I do not feel like I need to modify it. Again, I've seen people who have gone back and have actually wiped off the pigment on the face. Now, I don't trust myself enough to do that. Okay, I'm fine with them. The figure itself is made of, I don't know, it feels like a silicone maybe. It's rigid, but there's just a tiny bit of give to it. And what I like about that is it actually allows for some transparency. So it looks like it's being kind of picked up on the camera, but you can see that there's just like a hint of light that comes through the ears. And again, it lends realism to the figure. When you look at a person, light reflects through their skin, right? And that's one of the differences between a real person and if you see like a synthetic skin material. There's that play of the light, and again, you can kind of see that the edge of this ear. One of my favorite components of it are the eyes. This, I feel like, that was a major missed opportunity on Sideshow's life-size Yoda, where he does not have glass eyes. They're kind of like badly printed eyes. From a distance, they look fine. But on the child, you can see that he actually has, I don't know if they're necessarily glass or some sort of resin, but you can see this hint of reflection to them. And there's a very subtle detail of the corner of his eyes actually being painted to look just a little bit wet. So I really feel like there's been a lot of attention and care put into making this figure look alive and not just like some creepy statue that scares people in the middle of the night. The only detail that I do feel is kind of missing is in the show, his hair extends down to his ears, and unfortunately on this it stops just at the back of the head. So his ears do not have any hair, but that's pretty minor, and I'll let that slide, but it's worth pointing out. He, of course, in his hand has the knob from the Razor Crest, which is fine. It's super lightweight. It's very clearly like a hollow plastic, but for what it is, for what it needs to be, it's fine. It's a fun little detail, and I am very glad that it's removable. I think early on in the production process, it was permanently affixed to his hand. So I like having that option now, where if you don't want it on there, you don't have to. And it actually sits very well. That probably seems like a silly thing to point out, but if you do just want to display it elsewhere, he doesn't have to hold it, and you cannot see the magnet in his hand unless you really look for it. As usual, the Sideshow cut and sew elements are really nice, very nicely done. It's super thick, and the cloak is actually lined too. I feel like it's probably lined better than my winter jacket. So look at that, the child's doing better than me. And as anybody who's watched any other videos on this figure knows, the collar actually has wires in it. So it's a little bit posable, and I like that because out of the box, it needed to be kind of moved around and played around with to get it looking good. But it's very, very nicely detailed, very soft, and I think it reads well. And, you know, I've heard, again, some people say, oh, it doesn't look dirty enough. But I think just the natural texture of the fabric gives it sort of a grungy look. And the seams are kind of naturally like a grayish color. So to me, it it has like a good worn look to it. Not dirty, but it looks worn. It looks used, which to me is really representative of Star Wars at its finest. I like it when the props have that look to it. He stands just about 16 inches tall, and you don't have an appreciation of just how small he is until you get him out of the box, and you're like, oh wow, yes, he is this really little guy. Um, and so when you display him, I find it's best to display him on something a little bit taller, like a short table or something like that, because otherwise he could just be easily missed. Other nice details to it. He does have little feet in there. It's tough to see them, but they look like little Tyrannosaurus feet. The way that he stands on the base, there's a hole in the bottom of the foot, and there's a peg on the base, and he's basically just like a pressure fit. But it's a solid enough connection that he's not gonna fall over. He's also pretty lightweight. And apparently, according to Sideshow, he can stand on his own. I would not trust that, but just sharing that information. So, yeah, I think that's it. That is the Sideshow Collectibles life-size child figure. Like I said, I think overall he came out really well. I love that there's also that lineage to the original screen use prop, because this was made in collaboration with Legacy Effects. They use from what I've heard, as I understand it, they use the original molds from the actual puppet. So it gives it that sense of authenticity, of accuracy, things that I really like out of a prop like this. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw something down in the comments section. I genuinely love interacting with people in the comments section, so keep those questions coming. Thanks for watching.